The Museum of Everyone is an inclusive portable platform for artists and creatives that aims to amplify a diverse range of voices and perspectives through both artist and community-led collaborative initiatives. The Museum of Everyone is a space for potential, collaboration, original thinking, and action. Our ethos is simple. If you support your community will in return support you. Welcome, Bukashin. How are you doing and how was your day today?
I'm fine, thank you, Amanda. It's all good. Yeah, thank you.
It's all good. That's a good thing. So like I've seen your work. It's phenomenal, obviously, and we're here so that our viewers and more people around Tulamo and generally for the Museum of Everyone, people will know the artist behind the work. So would you care to tell us more about yourself?
Okay, well, absolutely. I would say that I'm an artist, an activist, and also a survivor of direct provision. I came to Ireland in 2006, 2007, and I was living in one of those centres that you have in Tullamore, which is called Marion Hostel, DP. I was living in Ballyhoney's direct provision centre in County Mayo, and for almost 3 years, and yeah, and that's the time when I started to take the work or document the direct provision that subsequently became a platform called Asylum Archive, which is a visual representation of direct provision in Ireland. So that's really me, and yeah.
Okay, it's interesting that you said you spent over like 3 years or 3 years in the Direct Provision Center. How do you think that experience shaped not only your work, but you as an individual?
I think that's the question you just asked now. It's extremely important. I think it's a pivotal question. It shaped me as individual extremely in extreme sense, but in extreme positive sense, that prior to coming to Ireland and living in a let's say in a white predominant white country, which was the former Yugoslavia, I would never dream that because of my needs to seek protection and to be safe, if you like, that I will meet people from all over the world, and that no matter how harsh the direct provision system is, and we all know about that, and it's been spoken on so many different platforms, there are some kind of micro narratives going on there. Me as a person, a white person living in direct provision, really was absolutely so interesting to meet people from all parts of Africa and Asia. And regardless of our background, regardless of our color of skin, we became friends, and we shared almost everything that we had. And we didn't have, and I wouldn't say this as a improvement, 38.80 now. I think it's a joke. We had 19.10, which was another joke, euros per week, you know. But we shared everything, you know, and that's the moment that through those conversations with my brothers and sisters from Africa mainly, and some from Asia, I actually really looked into my own practice, but it wasn't really arts practice, you know. As you know, in direct provision, you're merely looking how to survive. But all those conversations, all those kind of interactions did help me, not did help me, it's a wrong word, and I'm struggling with the words these days, did definitely made a crucial point, or so important, that paradigm that totally influenced the work. And then, you know, we can only take it from there. So direct provision, no matter how horrible, carceral system of putting people, you know, in a horrible conditions for numerous years, you know, was, it also was for me and for other people as well, something that we, no matter how hard it was, we did have those conversations. We did have chats. We looked after each other. And once when you decide as a human to look after other human, I think that's absolutely phenomenal. So no matter how much I'm advocate to end and abolish direct provision, I may have to say that Asylum Archive wouldn't be Asylum Archive if I didn't live in direct provision for 3 years plus, yeah.
Okay, like you touched on so many things, and I'm going to come back to some of the issues that you just mentioned. But speaking of Asylum Archive, what was the inspiration behind, I suppose, naming it that?
Yes, well, the main inspiration was really that I was living in on the second floor in the old convent Ballyhoney's direct provision. And then it was room 24. And after many, let's say, battles, I managed to get that room there. And then I was looking at some point at the ceiling of that room, and I said, like, oh my God, I'm suffering, right? And I'm not only one is suffering, it's people are suffering. So many people out there are suffering. Knowing that I was a practicing artist or photographer, you name it, whichever you want to call it, for almost a decade prior to coming to Ireland, I said, and also those reports start to come out, reports about abuse of the church and the state towards marginalized, vulnerable people living in industrial schools and mother and baby homes and Magdalene laundries. And I start to look at those carceral sites, and the first thing that I've noticed, there's very little visual documentation or very little visuals about how those people living there endured their imposed trauma. And I said to myself, well, I'm suffering. We are suffering. I don't know if I'm going to be deported. We don't know if we're going to be deported. But let me do one thing, please, if I may. Let me try to document. Let me try to take the photographs of everything I can see with my eyes. So maybe in some point, if this government of Ireland ever decides, perhaps in my case, not to give an apology, because I don't think we need an apology, really. Of course we do, but, you know, maybe change it, maybe close it, maybe abolish it. So if all this work is going to be helpful at some moment in time for the legal bodies, if you like, to write a report of how people have been treated as criminals who came to this white European shore only to seek for protection or for safety, for refuge, for a better life. Better life, if that's the word.
I think what you said, it was like so profound. Speaking of like how you felt the need to put a record down. I suppose so oftentimes things or people get away with so much because there isn't kind of like that record to showcase what is really happening. And like, yes, I think the inspiration for you to find that and actually turn it into something else was, you know, quite brave of you. I suppose my next question then, based on that statement, would be, why then does your work not is it not inclusive of people? I know you chose it, it's a choice that you made, you know, to make sure that your photographs don't involve people.
Yes.
Most people would argue that maybe seeing people, you know, it tells a story, it gives that human touch. So why did you choose such a, you know, a different approach?
Yeah. So can I put this bluntly? Now, very bluntly, if I would come and I was in Tullamore, I think it was early last year, and if I maybe saw you, Amanda, outside of the gate, right? And I was there as a photographer or an artist and I had a camera, and I would say to you, would you like me to take a photograph of you? We never met before. How would you feel?
I
The
think
first
I'll
thing
be
you
like,
would feel
yeah,
totally intimidated,
yes.
right? And I just think personally, apart, that I don't want to put any more hardship on people living in such a dire conditions, you know, like the direct provision centers. There is another layer of it, you know, and you know, do we really need to show how people's bodies? Do we need really to show their tears? Do you really need to show their suffering? So then that the establishment, whether in the visual arts discourse or in, let's say, the legal discourse or the government discourse, will have a pity, you know, and say like, oh, aren't they so poor? These guys come from Africa, Asia, Yugoslavia, they're so poor. Well, maybe we'll just give them status. And I just say one thing, no.
Mm,
Every single body, even in the worst possible conditions from the Nazi camps, has one thing as agency. Agency, ourselves, us, cannot be stripped away. We are all humans. There is no difference between person in direct provision and anybody else. We're all the same. And I say that maybe taking the photograph of the outside of the Marian hostel in DP, knowing the history of that particular building in Tullamore will tell more than taking photograph of, sorry to use your name again, Amanda or anybody else, you know, because what do we need to know? Do we really need to know poor bodies? Do we really need to see people washed, died of the shore in the shores of Europe, trying to cross from Africa to Europe, you know, over Mediterranean, dying? Do we really need to see the babies dying like Alan Carr, you know, do we really need to see that? Maybe not. But if even we see that, the problem here is that these racist European policies, I would have to say, may not change. You know, so for me, it's really all about the ghosts,
mhm,
about the remnants, about this architecture of confinement,
mhm.
about really putting a question there to the art establishment, not only in Ireland, but in Europe as well, of how do we work with people seeking refugee status? How do we talk to them? How do we address the issues, etc.? So I think personally, I have so many friends in present direct provision centers, and uh, it's so lovely to know them, and it's so maybe important to, you know, to know, for me to know how much they're struggling, particularly with this COVID at the moment, you know, and the rampant rise of people getting the virus in the centers. But, you know, so can we tell the story about direct provision rather than taking photographs of people who are living in direct provision?
Well, I think that was like so sensitive because I, like you said, I think so many people would then feel so vulnerable, you know, and it creates kind of a pity party of which a lot of people, you know, don't necessarily want that. So I'll just move on. In 2017, you got an award. It was the Arts Council Artist in Community Scheme Bursary, Art and Activism. Would you like to just give us a brief detail about that, how it felt, like the work that led to you getting such a phenomenal, awarded to you?
To just this is very interesting conversation between you and me now, because I'm always trying to be honest, and I think most of the time I'm very honest. So this time I'm going to be even more honest by saying, when I started doing the work for Asylum Archive, that was in 2007. So this came 2017, 2018. So that's 10 years that I was doing the work without zero funding, no funding. So my funding was having a packed lunch, a sandwich, and a bus ticket to go to places like Tullamore, like Cork, and I more or less I have kind of taken photographs, maybe around 6,000 photographs I have made up to that time when I applied for the bursary. And I said, well, this project is, because at the time, all of the centers were documented. And then I applied, then I got an award, and it was 10,000 euros. And I looked at myself, and I said, like, oh my God, that's lots of money. I don't know how I'm going to spend that, like, because the work is completed, and I really don't know how to spend that money. So apart from living and learning how we must continue to do our work, whether we get the funding or not, I said 10,000, great. So I decided to put all the 10,000 and a bit more from my own savings from teaching to make a hard copy or the publication of Asylum Archive. And that's where the funding from Arts Council, Arts Council and managed by Create went into. We created this publication, Asylum Archive, and then it's been distributed and it's been sold out, and so. And I was saying, like, isn't this just great? So people, apart from looking at Asylum Archive website, now have this amazingly designed book by Niall McCormack, a friend of mine, that it's another proof, it's another testament, of how we treat appallingly people who come to Ireland to seek protection. And it felt great, and it was phenomenal. But I just moved on, and it's I'm really happy the book has been produced. It's there, and people can have a look at that, and then it's just to see that some people don't really like, let's say, web presence. So if you kind of move between the papers,
Yes.
The hard copy, then you see it's still the same message, but it's different kind of medium, if you like. Yeah.
Okay, so now I know that you're now obviously involved with the Museum of Everyone. So what was kind of like the inspiration, or what drove you to come into a collaboration with the Museum of Everyone? And I know that you're currently working on a project for them, a photography workshop with the residents of Marian Hostel. Would you care to give us a bit more detail about that work and the involvement of, obviously, Asylum Archive and the Museum of Everyone?
No, I think it's absolutely a wonderful collaboration going on there between Museum of Everyone and Brendan and myself. I think it's phenomenal. To make it very short, I think it's really important for us as, wouldn't even use this word teachers ever, or educator, but just for people, right? To share their ideas, to share their thoughts with some people who are out there who would like to think or maybe improve or maybe develop their, let's in this particular case, practice. So this particular workshop that we're starting on Tuesday, on the 9th, is for people seeking protection in Marian DP Center. And it's me not coming here as like, this is photography, right? So you got to learn this and this and that, and you're going to submit this and this and that. If you don't, then you kind of fail, right? No, this is about conversation, really. This is about, you know, communication. This is about hearing and learning from each other. And I have chosen to expose direct provision, but I would like to perhaps maybe offer a different approach, that if people don't want to do that as part of this workshop, that's not one of the, let's say, this is not, they're all, they can do whatever they want, really. And this is so important in terms of photography and taking the photographs. And the really thing is, like, you know, I mean, if you're living in direct provision, you know, and I know how horrible it is, so maybe 40 minutes every week, doing something different. I'm not saying this is going to be the best workshop ever, but doing something different, you know, may be interesting. And also saying to people, you know, so I'll see you next Tuesday. In the meantime, you have your phone, take some photos, the photos you want to take. And then when you come back and show us those photos to the group, and we'll discuss it as a group, then maybe you tell us why do you take those photos, right? So this is the process of learning, of getting the learning outcomes, you know, and overall having fun, right? Having something different, you know, and I think it's going to be so lovely. You know, I'm really looking forward to Tuesday. We already have 6 people signed to take part. And I think it's just going to be really cool. Yeah, and I'm really, really happy to be invited by a Museum of Everyone to provide this kind of platform or work. Yeah.
Like, wow, like you're just doing great things, I suppose. So like, if people want to find out more about your work, about asylum seekers, about Vukushin as a person, where can they get a hold of you? Like, would you care to share with us where they can get in touch with you?
Absolutely, Amanda. So they find about my work at www.asylumarchive.com, but also a very important platform here, a grassroots group of people who are in direct provision or have survived direct provision, is MASI, Movement of Asylum Seekers in Ireland. So MASI.ie, comrades there. All I can say is, at the end, we shall get there. And it's really important that every single body who is willing to help join the struggle to abolish direct provision and all deportation, as comrades in an anti-racism network would say, who lives here belongs here. And we have room for everyone. And this is photography now that I'm would like to, that I will be talking about, but it's perhaps about that dream that we all have of a better, if that's the word, more inclusive, transparent world for everyone.
Thank you so much for those closing remarks, Vukushin. So you've heard it, the man behind the scenes, keeping up for his work. Go to his website, go to MASI, and thank you everyone for listening. Thank you, Vukushin, for coming on and talking to the Museum of Everyone. We really appreciate you taking out your time, you know, to give us more information about you and your work. And with that, from me and everyone at the Museum of Everyone, we'll call it a night. Thank you.